because you've done it. You finally climbed to that moment where now you're going to see the proof. You're going to finally get that testimony that you can hold on to and say, nobody can take this from me. And some of you are going to discover that motivation that got you there, which everybody needs it. I'm not trying to discourage that's not a good thing. It is a good thing. But there's an event, there's a phenomenon that takes place where once you're there, you can't handle the pressure and you throw out all the rules. You don't wait for the setup. You think that it's going to be stripped from you. You work so hard to get to this one. Now here's your first shot. The first shot to use the information that you've been studying. Now you can make gainful profits if it's correctly done. But you don't have the experience yet to lean on. And you see a sudden quick movement, which really isn't that much. Nothing's changed in the trade setup. But in your mind, because you're so keyed up, that motivation, you're hopped up. You're ready to go. You're that guy that all your friends are around. Fight, fight, fight. When if they weren't there, you judge, man, this got out of hand. It's just forgive me for saying whatever I said, but whatever I did to you. You can't do that now because they've incited that rage. You've become lustful for blood. You need to do this now. And something happens where that motivation becomes impulse. And you don't use your model and you press the button. As soon as the button is pressed, you're regretting it. Because now you just entered the uncertainty with no plan, no entry, no PDRA. You chase the price. And everything you've heard me say comes rushing into your brain and you're thinking, oh man, this is that thing you talked about. Now that trade seems like it's going to choke the life out of you. Maybe you start hyperventilating. You don't realize it yet. So you start feeling your fingers and your hands and your arms start tingling. All of a sudden you start feeling your heart palpitate. Feels like you can't breathe. Doesn't feel like there's any air in the room. Why is it so hard to breathe? That's anxiety. Now you're feeling the effects of the adrenaline in your body, and you're standing still. It's like a Ferrari in neutral, running with the accelerating pedal to the floor. It's not good for the engine. And now you're worrying about what you're feeling bodily. And then cortisol is going to release. And that hormone makes you feel like you're going to die. Now, how can you be watching price, managing it, and what you should be doing, focusing on your model, if you think you're having a stroke or a heart attack or about to pass out or throw up? I've been there. I've been there, and I've been there while driving a truck over the Key Bridge in high winds, panicking because I'm watching my Coretrack tell me that there's absolutely nothing I can do, and I'm nowhere near paid for. You can't understand that. You don't understand that because you're so spoiled with the information and technology we have today where we can just press a button to get in and get out. Seconds. Be on the other side of a bridge and then someone goes and has a typical thing that anybody else would have normally while they're doing construction on the bridge. You only have one lane, and then their engine and you're on a trade, you can't get out, and you can't move, and you lose your account that day because you thought you were smart enough not to use a stop loss. Because you thought you were smart enough not to use a stop loss. And Copper said, not today. That's the stuff that I lived through that. I did that stuff. So there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you, this is where I made this much money, this is where I made this much money, this is where I made that much money, I did this, I did that, I did this. Nobody is comfortable telling you where they messed it up. They want to hide it. They want to delete it like it didn't happen. Most of my mentoring is telling you what it's going to be really like. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't pretend that I didn't come from humble beginnings where it was very hard, next to impossible, and I quit dozens of times. That's what I call it. But folks that have been around me for a while just know that isn't it. Code word for I need a break. I need another job to get some money scratched up because I didn't have a lot of it. But that motivation that leads you to the dance and you're watching the charts, you got to guard your mind and really stick your heels in, dig them in deep and say, okay, yeah, that button's right there. I can push it. I can push that button. Any time I want to push that button, it's going to get me in the trade. But am I entering the trade based on my model with the logic in mind that I'm entering in the opposing direction of where I see the profit? So if I'm bullish, I got to be entering when prices drops. It's got to be dropping. If it doesn't drop, I'm chasing. I can't do that. You can't do that. When you do these types of trades and you're buying while markets are moving away from your expected directional draw or where your limit order to take profit or partials are, a lot of fear that most traders have because they have confirmation bias. Every trader out there goes through a stage of they need to have confirmation bias. They have to know that they're in the trade and they're on side. Then they're willing to give up a large portion of the first initial run. And out. All of a sudden now they have courage. Oh, I know I'm right now. I'm really right now. And then they chase it. And now their stop loss has to be so much larger. And while they're in that trade, it might pan out. It might go exactly where they thought it was going to go originally, and probably never had any drawdown. It might be just they're buying it and it just starts running and ripping away. That's really what they want. But you know what? When it happens, it's a terrible thing because it's teaching you to do bad things and expect good results. It doesn't make any sense, right? But you'll convince yourself at the time that this is what's right for you. In the absence and the void of any real experience, sound logic, you're going to create your own right there in the heat of the moment. And that motivation becomes impulse. And for those of you that have traded with real risk of losing something, not a demo, reset is the worst that can happen. I'm talking about you lost your funded account. You lost your combine that you were working hard for. Traded with real money. You know exactly what I'm talking about, and did that dozens of times as you've been here. You have to have a model, but before that model is useful to you, you have to know what price is likely to do. What characteristics does it show? How does it behave in the morning? How does it behave in the afternoon? How does it behave in those respective sessions after a big up close day, or a down close day, or an inside day? They're all characteristics that you need to study and associate with over a period of time. And you're not going to be able to do it in just a few short weeks or a couple months. It takes time. Some of you are just so willing to assume risk, hoping that you're right like a lottery win, that you throw all sound logic and reason out the window because you just want to have something to hang your hopes on. Because if you make a little bit of money, a little bit of money is better than what you were doing before, right? If I could just make $100 a week. Yeah, I can see that. In today's world, that means something. That might be your gas being covered for a week, back and forth to work. Things are expensive. When I put gas in my truck, if I drive it a lot, it's very easy for me to go through $130 a week. 8 cylinders, most, they eat it. I'm not worried about that money, but I think about how it would hurt the average person out there. It's a lot. I mean, that's the reason why there's a lot of cars or car lots up here that have these kind of trucks sitting in the car lot in the used lot. They traded them in, they can't handle it. Too much expense. Same thing when they bought that vehicle. They were motivated because they saw their buddies have a truck. I got your truck too. Everybody driving trucks. And we bought it because they were impulsive. They were regretting it, they had buyer's remorse. You don't want your trading to have remorse. You want to have removed any doubt that you can justify anything outside yourself as the reason why you lost. That went over your head right now, especially the ones that want to start their parents. I'm going to say it again real slow and painfully. Many of you, especially the ones that are beginning this, you're trying to do anything to get in and make money, but you're willing to ignore all sources of responsibility on yourself. But as a trader that is actively trying to pursue consistency and longevity, profitability, what you're trying to do while obtaining that as your goal, the way you get there is removing any excuse, any cause, any reason for you failing outside of your own model and your own experience. That's personal responsibility. And that's not taught in this industry. It's easy to be able to say, well, the markets are random. Well, they really shouldn't offer 15 contracts. If it really isn't good for us, they shouldn't really do that. There's always excuses that the ones that aren't prepared to be responsible, to be sound stewards of the money that they have in their hands and the risk that they associate with it. I'm not going to use a stop loss because I have a point to prove. Well done, maximum loss drawdown margin call. You proved the point. Everybody knew it, but you confirmed it. That's scar tissue. Now that's going to motivate you to do stupider things. Because now you're embarrassed. Because everybody saw what we already knew. Might not be that grand of a scale of an embarrassment for you when you take your trade that led you up to the charts. You're there, you got all the things figured out. And you impulsively predict and anticipate the setup forming, but you want to be ahead of it because you can't weather the impatience. It's agony. Oh man, what if it runs without me? I sat there all this time. I did all that charting. I already told people I was going to be buying long, and they're going to be asking me for proof. Where's the receipts? Where's the long? And I ain't going to have you to jump. Oh my goodness, I don't care. I got to get it. There you go. Yeah. You did everything wrong. I don't care if your analysis was good. I don't care if your lipstick on your chart was correct, if your drawing was correct, all that. Everything you just shouted the shit with this injury. Because now your risk isn't appropriate. It's got to be larger now. You entered in the direction of the profit, which we don't do. But I see the guy watching pyramid. Yep. And when I'm buying when it's going down. Every time. Think. Well, let me retract that. When I'm inside of a PD array, I can accumulate a new pyramid entry there too. But I have size behind me that's already layered when I take those types of trades. Otherwise, if I don't have that, I won't move on. For perfect example would be my breaker. It's bullish, and I think prices are going higher. I'll annotate the chart while I'm doing the trades, and you see me recording it. I'll annotate it as a bullish breaker, and I'm entering inside the breaker. It hasn't left it yet and come back and touched it. See, that's the part you know. That's the easy side of it. The hard part is knowing where the market's going to go and being confident that I can enter on the breaker. And if it comes back, then I'll buy it again and add more because I'll have more to lean on, trusting that it's going to go higher so I can add more to it. But if that's my first entry, that's not likely going to be the trade I go on. Then I'll elect to wait for it to come back to the breaker. But if I've already bought, like I bought the sell side that the breaker ran down for, I'm buying below that previous low. Then when it goes up into what you would classically identify as a breaker after it's moved above it and then come back down touching it, I'm buying it in it before it breaks above it, before it's going to retrace back again and touch it. So there's a time, there's a reason for everything I'm doing. I'm not just, pulling shit out of my ass just to say something or prove something that doesn't have any sound logic that I repeat over and over and over again. There's a logic behind what it is I'm doing. Everything that I do in my executions are systematic. I had to learn that through pain, loss, blowing accounts, losing lots of times, and every single time, guess what I had for it? Right before I lost the account, before I lost the trade, before I had remorse, I had motivation. I had confidence. But that confidence and that motivation was like that guy, you're standing there. You really don't want to fight this person. Not because you're afraid that they're going to kick your ass, but you don't want to fight that person. You really don't want to be like, it's not appropriate for you to be doing what you're being pushed into. And you have that circle of influence around you, everybody's shouting, oh yeah, fight. When wisdom says, wait. If they want to swing on you, then you hit them in their fucking throat. Grab them by their ears, drive their nose into your fucking knee, drag them down to the ground, put your knee in the back of their fucking skull, and pound the shit out of them. You didn't ask for it, but you reciprocated. You invited them to walk away, they won't. Well, in trading, at that moment, especially for young men, this is Sparta, bitch. I'm here now, and I don't need to wait for them to set up. Front kick, boom. But you find out you're the one falling down. You're the one feeling that gut kick to the solar plexus, and you can't breathe now because you pushed the button. You can't take it back. You can't take it back. What does that mean? You know you shouldn't have entered there. Sound logic would be, all right, this is premature entry. Just close it right now and wait for the setup. But you won't. You won't. Because the thing that pushed you into that impulsively is telling you right now, man, I hope it keeps going up from here. I hope it keeps going up. And please don't drop. Please don't drop. Please don't drop. When it's so much less pain and suffering just to close the trade and then wait for that setup. You might have a little bit of drawdown and the commission cost you spend. Okay. But you have preserved your mental capital. The money that you're spending and potentially losing on that trade is insignificant in terms of the amount of debt that you're going to carry mentally as a trader for the rest of your career by doing that silly shit. Think about it. How many times have you been in a trade where even if it went to the worst case scenario and ran all the way to wherever your stop would have been, notice I said that. I mean, you aren't trading with a stop loss. What's the worst that can happen? That loss doesn't end you, but in your mind, you've lost a limb. You've lost your strong arm. How else could you ever go back into trading if you lose this trade? If I lose this trade, I can't imagine ever wanting to do this again. That's the equivalent of what you're doing. But where was the motivation? that led you to that moment. Right when it came to the time where you push that button, it transforms into impulsiveness. That moment, right before you take your trade, you have to really, really know what you're doing. You have to know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it. And before you press the button to get into it, you have to know exactly where your static maximum risk is, and there must be a stop loss there. Because once you have that, see, you're trying to avoid that stop loss because you're afraid it's going to hit it. Whereas a professional-minded trader, they want to know what that is, that way they don't worry about it. This is what I'm willing to lose. If I'm wrong, okay, I'm willing to take that as a loss. But you want to trade with the maximum leverage. So it makes perfect sense for you to try to avoid everything, you'll never get stopped out. You'll never get stopped out if you never use a stop loss. You know what that is? Head and ass syndrome. Your head's too far up your ass and you can't see things properly. I'm sorry, I can't see your perspective. I used to see it like that. I went through that same thing. But I pulled my own head out of my own ass and started looking at things correctly. And some of you are fighting me on this. No, you don't get it, ICT. I'm different. I'm going to be the exception. No, you're not. You're just going to do it worse. Because you'll never talk about it. You're never going to tell anybody what you did. When they're trying to do the best thing for you. It disarms you. It makes you human. It proves that we're fallible. We're not infallible. Some of you think I'm infallible as a trader. Sometimes I don't do it right. Sometimes it doesn't work out where I want it to go. Like, there's many instances where I told my son, so that, I would like to see you do this, do that. And there it is. And we sat together and said, but Dad, it did this, and you entered there, and it didn't do what you thought. So how would I know that experience? And some of you don't want to hear that answer. 30 years, folks, that's a long time to be looking at stuff that's doing the same stuff all the time. You get used to it. You know with confidence that that one trade that you're looking at right now, even if it fails, and the three after it fails, it doesn't change the efficacy of the model. It doesn't change you as the trader. It just means if you execute on them, you might have incurred loss. But are you allowing for and inviting those losing trades, those losses, to take you completely out of the model, completely away from trading, and or having the ability to be solvent to trade? It's amazing how traders that get so worked up chasing other people's bullshit online, these things that people promote falsely, they don't have any evidence that they can do it. They don't talk about it before it happens. They don't use a model or an approach that is applicable or you can see being used in the executions. You don't even see their executions. They just tell you this is a trade I took. And they're using the buy and sell overlay thing on TradingView. That's not even an entry with a demo. That's just, here's a trade I took. I think I got in around here. Listen to what they say. They tell on themselves. But they're selling mentorships. That's frustrating. For somebody that knows what the fuck's going on and has taught, man, I don't know how many people, but I've taught a lot of people for free. And it's just my tolerance for it is gone. It's gone. And I don't try to influence all you in that respect. But if you're going to be trying to pay somebody for something, they better have the goods. They better be able to prove that they can do what they're claiming they can do, instead of talking about something on that side of the chart. But you all fall victim to that stuff. This image-based stuff. Materialistic stuff. And you resist sound logic, real money-making, money preservation insights. That I went through this stuff. I had to lose a lot of money to learn these lessons, and I'm trying to very much remove the necessity for you to go through that same stuff. And you don't want to listen, like my own kids. They don't listen. You wonder why my own sons do the things that they do? The same reason why you ain't listening to me. Just because they have my DNA in them doesn't mean that they're going to, it's a symbiotic relationship. I'm ICT's offspring. It's, whatever, the main one says, all the ones, like there's this relationship where whatever, it's a herd mentality. the word escapes me, but it's kind of like the show The Last of Us. The fungus, whatever one fungus feels or experiences, they all feel at the same time. That doesn't happen because they're not kids. They're discovering themselves too. And they're discovering that they're human. And guess what humans are? We're terrible decision makers. That's a skill set that has to be honed and beaten to us. The scripture says iron sharpens iron. Meaning, it's not going to be easy. If iron had feelings and nerve endings, it probably would be wincing when you rub it against another piece of iron. When you take that raw piece of metal and you want to forge it into a blade, what do you have to do to it? You have to harm it. You have to do damage to it. You have to take its useless edges off and make one useful edge. That edge is your edge that you're going to use as a weapon or a tool. Knife, a blade. But many of you want to go out to the market and you do all this work in preparation, and you have this high-tech 50 caliber sniper rifle in your hand. And you show up and you're right there. You're sitting and you're waiting for it. You're looking through your scope. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then all of a sudden the market starts running. And what do? You reach for your fucking baseball bat and you chase it. What the hell is that? That's caveman mentality. That's not civilized. That's uncivilized. That's savagery. We're waiting for the mark to walk into the crosshairs, gently hug the trigger, and be confident that we have executed precisely what our model is expecting us to do. We will not second guess it because we've done everything up to the point of engagement and entry. Our stop loss is there. We don't worry about it because we're comfortable with the risk. But if I'm honest with you, that means I can only really risk $75. Right. Exactly. That's why you're trading with a fucking micro. Okay? That's why you're doing that. It's not about how much you can make. It's about how much you can afford to lose and still stay in the game while you're learning. For the folks that say you can't make money with a micro. Oh, you can't make money with a micro account. You gotta have this and that and the other thing. You are not versed in math. You have no idea. Rudimentary math is escaping you. Because if you can have a model, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be my stuff. I'll say it again. It doesn't have to be what I teach. It could be anything out there that causes you to have a decision. If you risk very little and you're very, very good at managing money and don't overtrade, you can be profitable doing this. You're going to have a lot of losing trades, and that might not sit well with some of you, most of you. In fact, 99.9% of you, whether you are a profitable student or trader, over my stuff or something else, you might be just listening to this and not even trading it. I use Elliott Weave, and I made money, and this, that, and that thing. Okay, you made money because you are able to weather the losing trades. But nobody wants to warm up to the idea that you're going to lose a lot in the beginning. You're trying to avoid that. When the whole secret is to do that very thing in the beginning. Because all the lessons that it teaches you removes the invitation for you to take that motivation and let it become impulse. If you have gone to the stage of now you're in that position where the trade that you're going to enter has a real risk of failing a funded account or drawing down in a funded account combine or losing your money in a live account. If you got to that point and you have not overcome this worrisome thoughts of what am I really looking for? Where should I place my stop loss? Am I comfortable with what I'm risking here? Is that stop really hard? Is it there? Or is it implied or a mental stop? Because they don't work. Try to use a mental stop on a CPI. You're going to be mental afterwards. You're literally going to be warped. And a real stop loss doesn't work there either. So what does that teach you? Why do I even talk about CPI? If you're not going to trade ahead of CPI on CPI, why even talk about it? Or you get the guys that, this is where the volatility is. Okay, show me trading before the CPI. Getting it right. Crickets. And the ones that try, get their asses handed to them. Devastating fashion. That's embarrassing. And some of these people, well, let's be honest, most of them that are doing those things are selling something, of course, a room, or they have their own brokerage. That's nonsensical. It's ludicrous to invite those instances in your trading. You want it to be boring. You want it to be where if you lose, who cares? I'm still going to do the same model on the next setup based on the logic. If the trade failed here, but the overall conditions in the marketplace are as is still, I'm going to take the next setup. There it is. It's done. I already have it in my head. That's what I'm going to do. Unless I'm proven incorrect. And therefore, I either need to move to the sidelines and wait for new information or reverse. But that's not always a reverse. In the beginning, that motivation, hey, I'm going to get in this trade, and you do it wrong, or if you get squeezed out of the trade because you're on a stop loss, because you chase price, that pressure that you're feeling is going to make you think you got it wrong, and you'll abandon your model. And then what do? Become impulsive again and say, oh, I got it wrong. Not realizing that you just didn't do what you're supposed to do and wait for the setup. You'll revert in the natural progression of the retracement that your original trade idea should have been waited for. So you did it wrong, chasing it. Then you're scared because it's retracing on you, and you reverse. And then the trade goes where you want it to go. But then here's where you lie to yourself. I knew this was going to happen, and the broker, they slipped me, and I had to get, you're lying. You fucking chased the price. You did it incorrectly, and then you changed your mind because you couldn't handle the pressure of the retracement because you were misplaced. You weren't offside. You had a poor entry, poor execution. You did it poorly. You should have closed the trade, sat and waited for the setup. Not make one decision incorrectly and then impulsively fix a mistake